actual terminology that people are used to, because saying the word NFT is actually scary right now. It's been branded as scary. It was first branded as making money, and now it's branded as scary. And so when you start realizing that you don't actually need to use the term NFT, it's your vocabulary and the way that you're explaining kind of what your project is and how to engage with it, and understand that NFT blockchain is just the technology that's going to be living in the background. You'll see a lot of gaming platforms not using that terminology anymore, and you're going to see just a lot of easier on ramps, which is going to help adoption a lot faster and cleaner.
Yeah, I think from my end, just to add on to that, I think one of the things that brands are definitely uncomfortable with is the idea that Web3 doesn't have a well-defined end state. So this is kind of an ever-evolving organism that's going to be changing over decades amount of time. There is no end state that you can point to and say, you've done this, now your brand is Web3. I mean, this is something that has to be part of the operating ethos of a company moving forward. And it does involving your community and understanding how to actually manage a community and speak to a community and know the difference if your brand even needs a community or not. That's where I see, a lot of brands doing it the wrong way is they don't create those environments where a community is actually needed. I mean, there are certain dynamics in which you need to have a community and some which you don't. But I think a lot of the brands where they find a lot of discomfort is the idea that it's not a project that really has an end date set to it. So you're really having them dive into an exploration phase, and it's going to be a very long-term relationship. I mean, we all kind of, if you really think about it, if we're viewing this as the immersive continuum of the internet, or we're really asking these CEOs and these executives to think about the idea of compressing, let's just pretend we're compressing 30 years of the internet into a 2-year market cycle. I mean, that's not going to make them very comfortable. They just have to understand that it's definitely a long game, and have at least a minimum of a 10-year horizon on what your goals are going to be.
Yeah, I would actually second that as well. I think a lot of people are coming in with such a short-term strategy, and they really have to be planning for the long haul, right? Creating some safe POCs, and kind of segmenting some of their audience by creating a strong value prop to just dip their toe in the water and try, because you're building a relationship, right? A stronger relationship in a world where you're essentially bringing in this community of people that you're going to be able to make mistakes with. Bored Ape did this incredibly well, where they brought 5,000 people into, a space and had them moving around in real time. And even if they would have made many mistakes, there's always going to be people who just are haters, but they redefined something, and they created such a strong loyalist amongst their community that they're going to continue to try new things. They may make some mistakes, but they'll be forgiven, and people will be able to grow. And it's no different to a big brand stepping into the space. If they just come in carefully and just respect their community, they'll be able to really build some great stuff with them.
Yeah, I guess speaking of community, I just want to jump. Oh, John, did you want to say something? I was going to ask you a question.
Just ask me a question.
I love the simplicity. I just wanted to jump in and ask John something, because he's all about community. I mean, his LinkedIn, he's apparently on LinkedIn. How many hours a day did you say again? Like 12 hours a day?
24 hours, 20. Oh yeah, 12 to 16 hours a day.
Something ridiculous, right? I mean, I've never heard of anybody being on LinkedIn that much. But you can tell he's like really passionate about, building a community and having an audience. And he was saying yesterday on the Zoom, he feels like he owes it to his community, because they're constantly engaging. They're constantly, messaging John. So can we talk about that, John? Like, how important is community in the Web3? Like, look at all of us. We're all across the world. Like, Josh is somewhere in Brazil, and Prashant and I and String, we're in Australia. You and Charles are in USA. like the Web3 is really bringing the community together all around the world. So can you talk about that? Like, what is it like, the Web3? What's a Web3 like in the communities all across the world, what you've seen so far?
So it's amazing, honestly. Like I just decided to use LinkedIn as my platform to build community in Web3, and honestly, most of my opportunities in terms of deal flow and just even personal relationships that I've built in the space have all come basically through LinkedIn. So it definitely pays huge dividends. You have to put in the work, but I take a different approach. When I post, I try to engage my community who's posting through comments. Usually the first day I'm trying to almost respond to everybody. So it's been a super powerful tool for me. But it takes a lot of work. Look, I'm just like one person. So think of it a big brand, right? Leveraging something like Discord. I think Discord, I mean, I don't want to bag on it too much, but I'll start to bag on it because that's what I do. But I just think it's not a good mechanism to build community for big brands that are going to be looking to enter Web3. So there's definitely a massive opportunity there. And obviously, I think, companies like WhatsApp and there's other companies that are toying around with building something that's a little more scalable for building community. But yeah, community was like a term that was thrown around a lot in 2021, but those were basically Discord communities that were filled with a lot of bots, and it was really benefiting a lot of scammers, cash grabbers, liars, and cheaters. I mean, let's be honest, like there was like $17 billion in NFT transactional volume last year. And now you look at basically the same point this year as last year, and it's what, maybe 500 million? I mean, it's almost 100% dip. So it's, even though those numbers were big, I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. It was a lot of people lacking morals and integrity, and you don't hear about a lot of those people anymore. To be honest, like a lot of those so-called superstars from 2021 that were running around speaking on conference stages and flexing left and right and thought they were on top of the world. You don't hear from them anymore, and they're reaching out to me now, begging me for jobs on LinkedIn. I won't even like name names, but it's pretty ridiculous. So I'm just like, so community, I think, a term that was thrown around a lot. It's a vanity word. It didn't really mean a lot. So I think like the way Charles and I approach creating NFT thought leaders in Good Morning Web3 Live is really trying to build community the right way, finding people that really are here to build, do something meaningful, have morals and ethics, have integrity, are in it for that, like he said, that long haul, that 10-year stretch, because that's really what you need to be. I think 2021 was characterized by like a lot of quick cash grabbers. You're not going to hear from them again because they were never in it for the right reasons. So community, I think you have to take a long-term approach, and that's why we created Good Morning Web3. And honestly, Charles and I, we have this conversation all the time, but we're actually really, our community, our network is getting smaller and smaller by the day, but it's getting stronger because we're really weeding out sort of the bad actors. And it's exciting. But if you ever want, run a name by me or Charles, and we'll give you our honest opinion on what we think of them. But I think it's a very small group. I think it's a very small group of people right now that are really here for the right reasons, really are the right builders. Like, it's not as big as you would think. So, but it's why I stay close to Charles. He's literally one of the most genuine, most intelligent people in the world. And like, I made that decision the first time I met Charles. I was like, I'm gonna stay close to this guy because he is in it for the right reasons. He knows what he's talking about, and I would classify Charles as a real builder.
So, Charles, question to you in that case, because I know that real builders know real builders. So, which countries and where in the world you are seeing, like, or is it more global and there are people here and there? Like, which country is doing probably, like, best way in Web3 and they're adopting it the best? Charles, you're on mute in case you are speaking.
Charles.
Oh yeah. No, I was here. Sorry, I thought you said John. I didn't hear you say Charles. I mean, it really depends on which layer you're thinking about in the Web3 space in general. Obviously, I view it in very, very broad terms. I would say if you're talking about people that are actually doing dApps, DeFi, especially building things on chain consistently for consumer use, India is pretty well killing it right now, doing an incredible job. Obviously utilizing Polygon for a lot of those, but also like newer technologies like Shardium and some of the other ones that have come out of that region. I think when it comes to, interestingly enough, kind of following the real world when it comes to metaverse and architecture and things of that nature, you're starting to see kind of those traditional architecture countries come into play. The Norways, the Swedens, the Germany, Israel, like a lot of those are kind of following the real world um, dynamics that they have as far as building real world buildings, but also building things that are in virtual worlds. Um, yeah, I mean, we kind of see a little bit of an explosion, kind of, across the globe. They're just very kind of very very detailed on what it is they're actually building. I wouldn't say that there's one particular
Yep.
country or region that's doing everything,
And
fully. I think a lot of countries are getting pretty specialized.
one thing that always puzzles me is that when companies are trying to move from Web 2 to Web 3, the enterprises in particular, do you think this is the shift where the new players will have a better say and better leverage than the enterprise, or do you think that enterprise will come later but they will take over what everybody is experimenting and failing, and they will take the wins and then they will be able to utilize it better?
I think on the enterprise space, the interesting thing with a lot of the brands that want to come in and have an enterprise use case for blockchain, a lot of them are doing a few things. Either they're using private blockchains and just having them built themselves, or they're utilizing blockchains that are absolutely not decentralized. So yes, they have a great system and a great ledger for their own data verification, but it's not necessarily completely decentralized. Um, Also, obviously, with the large enterprises, what we're kind of seeing, and this goes to the gaming space too. I know a lot of people talk about gaming, but with AAA gaming studios as well as enterprise, it's just a lot of bureaucracy. It's taking them a long time to get through the red tape of getting legal approvals to do everything that they want to do in the space, because there's not much regulatory frameworks or legal frameworks that they can kind of point to and say, yes, this is 100% good, and or this is 100% not going to be okay for our business. And especially the ones that are publicly traded in the global markets, based on their shareholder agreements, they're having some real struggles finding legal precedent on where they can participate in the space and where they can't. And just like every other industry out there, it seems like the regulation and the laws surrounding what can be done and what can't be done seem to be lagging what the market actually wants to do. But I do think there are some people sitting on the sidelines waiting to see some kind of regulatory opinions come out, some legal opinions come out that hold weight before they jump in. And I mean, yeah, they're definitely taking notes. I know there's a lot of big institutions and enterprises out there taking notes on what's working, what's not working, and as soon as they get kind of a green light from their legal department, they are going to jump in a massive way.
Charles, can I jump in as well? You mentioned that bureaucracy is holding back the enterprise from entering the space. But when it comes to new technologies, do you feel like having a smaller, maybe spin-off company where they could be more agile would help them leverage and build new use cases in the Web3 space? Because at the moment, it's like moving a whale or an elephant into a new space. But I feel like being agile and being super curious helps maneuver like in the Web3 space.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can get them to do it and, spin up kind of a special vehicle outside of their business in order to do that kind of research, it's going to be really beneficial to them. I think we've just seen a lot of people that they want to use blockchain and Web3 use cases for their main business purpose. And that's where it typically runs into a lot of the bureaucracy. I do think any major enterprise out there that's interested in getting in this space, they should have at least a small team, if not an entirely separate company, doing a lot of R&D in this space and seeing how it can benefit the larger organization. I mean, I think that's how you lead. That's how you lead like the best, product driven company, is by doing that research and getting info from those feedback loops.
Or did what companies did, buy out smaller companies because it's actually the best time to acquire them as well right now. because they already have the skill sets for it, instead of like, so just acquiring a Web3 company is also a good move as well.
That's a great idea, and we've seen a couple other, on the flip side of that, we've seen some unfortunate things also in the industry where there's a couple very large, I would say global 50 brands out there taking a lot of meetings and taking a lot of interviews with the smaller Web3 companies. They'll do 3, 4, 5 phone calls. They'll take a lot of notes, spend a lot of time making it seem like they want to hire or acquire these smaller companies. And then a month later, they'll put up job specs, and basically they're using a lot of people in the Web3 space to get the information on how to inform their hiring decisions moving forward. So that's one of the unfortunate things I've seen a couple large enterprises do, that it really wastes the time of people in the Web3 space that are really trying to build something, gets them really excited. They get to talk to a large brand, and then a large brand kind of, utilizes their information in a, not so appropriate way.
And I agree with that. And I've had the fortune of talking with a lot of big brands, and we've definitely been strung along, you can say. Don't get me wrong, the market is the market, but there is a lot of kind of extraction of information. And what's funny is that a lot of these guys, when they do extract their information and they go and they roll out their strategy, they tend to miss the mark pretty heavily. And there's a lot of big companies right now who are really, I've had the privilege of seeing some of these strategies with some companies you wouldn't believe, and it's kind of shocking how much they miss the mark, that they're just really not acknowledging just little things. And the reason I mentioned at the beginning why it's really important to get in touch with the younger kids in the audience, that they're doing anywhere from, 21 to 25, is because they live, eat, and breathe. And I know John was bashing on Discord a little bit, but Discord's been around for a long time in the gaming space, and people are very familiar with that technology. So I'm going to agree and disagree on community platforms like that, but I don't think it's correct for every big brand, right? For some it is. It just is very specific on the demographic of the audience. But I've had the pleasure of working with two individuals by the name of Brett Malinowski and Brandon Priest, who are 25, who started off just from doing a YouTube channel on talking about NFTs and stuff, but really built a business that has left them doing over $50 million in revenue just in the last year alone. And now I've kind of been working with them, and we're talking to brands, but they're taken seriously, because they've executed. And there's a lot of people who kind of executed on one thing in the bull market, but there's another in a bear market. And so back to kind of what Belinda was saying and John was saying, is that there's actually very few people who actually know what it takes to kind of cultivate that community and roll out this kind of Web3 strategy and kind of help these bigger brands.
Yeah, and on that point, Charles, John, oh my gosh.
You go. No, you go.
You go.
Run it.
John,
go. Please go. Please go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna have a battle. I was just gonna say on that, like, what do you think the best advice would be, or I guess tips for Web3 strategies for businesses that want to dive into the space? Like, just say top 3 things.
I'm gonna throw in one thing. They need to start paying. So that's step one. And honestly, that's something we're just even internally doing at our company. But you have to start to pay. So like literally, because there's other people in the space that are charging tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for advice. So I'm just gonna tell you straight up right now, like start charging for all your knowledge and connections and whatnot. Because like we've been in the space long enough. We deserve to get paid for like kind of betting, who like actually knows what they're talking about, the knowledge we've acquired, but it's time to kind of cash it in. So like don't like discount like all that knowledge you built, all those connections, and start to charge for it. So that's my 2 cents.
And anything else you want to add to it? Other than just paying, like what else would you say, like top 3 things for a small business to dive in? Because a lot of these people listening, obviously they've jumped on to understand, what Web3 is and what a Web3 strategy would be and why they should jump in. So like, where would they even start? Like, what are the tips to start?
I mean, another thing too is like something, Charles, I'll let Charles, but just another thing we talk to a lot of big brands, and they're like, hey, we have our certain set of KPIs. So tell me how Web3 can address those same KPIs better than what's available in Web2. I think that's another way to like start. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, like I'm a CPA, CFO, like by trade. So it's like if you don't know your books, you don't know your business. So go back to basic business fundamentals. Look at your income statement and your balance sheet and be like, okay, like how would like Web3 address some of these KPIs better than what's currently available? So that's what I would say. So, but I mean, Charles, I want Charles was going to speak. So he's going to say some way. He's going to say some way smarter stuff. So.
No, I was actually going to say exactly what you just, no, I'm just kidding, John. No, I think one thing is, before you really dive into the space, think about if you're going to be a community-led business or if you're going to be a product-only led business. And that doesn't mean that you have to be one or the other. You can be both. But I will say when it comes to community, there's two dynamics that basically can help you decide if you're going to lead with community or not. And that is, do you have an offering that has ever-changing dynamics to it? That's typically one thing that builds a lot of really strong communities. So examples of that would be, gaming. There's always something changing in a game. You can share information with other players. That's why sports and sports fandom has such strong communities. There's always something to talk about. There's a new match, a new game, a new player. There's things to talk about there. The other dynamic that builds really strong communities is taking people on a journey from a place of where they're having challenges to a place that is, past those challenges. So you're taking them on that journey of, that's why you see a lot of big communities around like thought leader guru type of coaching, or you see it in the fitness world because you're taking somebody on a journey to become better at something. So if you have an offering where you can take people on a journey from bad to great, you're perfectly ripe for a community. If you have the ability to have an ever-changing dynamic like gaming, television, sports, you're ripe for like a great community. But there are people that just have really good products, and your product can have a community, but it does not have to have a community. There's people in the, let's just say the Fortune 50 that have no community at all, but they've still managed to make incredible revenues. I don't see the thriving Exxon Mobil community and the thriving Walmart community. Like they're just not there. But it doesn't mean that they don't make any money. It just means that they are creating a very commoditized product that doesn't really need a community attached to it. And the other thing on the Web3 side is just, to John's point, is there going to be something that solves a problem here? And I think one of the best ways to do that in utilizing Web3, and when you do have that community built, is you're essentially crowdsourcing all of the information of the people that use your product and services the most, and they want to be listened to, and they also want to be rewarded for being listened to. And that's where you have the ability to have those wallet connections and reward people for helping that business move forward as an entire group. You're actually inviting people to be a part of your business and your business's growth. And there's people that take, really strong, really strong liking to that, and they can end up being some of your biggest advocates out there. I think in Web3, that's one of the things that we need the most is the ability to scale a lot of unscalable things. If you have a cool app on your phone, it's much easier for you to just tell your friend, I love this app, you need to download it too, than it is for that company to sit there and just pay for user acquisition ads over and over and over again. So the power of community it's going to be huge. It's going to be one of the biggest drivers probably in the next 2 decades for sure.
Yeah, totally. Community is huge, especially in the space. Relationships are everything. But as John was saying, it's getting smaller and smaller because it's all really right now smoke and mirrors. String, I wanted to jump to you. What are you seeing in the market, and like, what are the 3 things that you can give the audience that they can do or advice based on what you've done to jump into the Web3 space?
I actually think Asia is an untapped market. There's already a huge adoptions of wallets already there, so educating the market is much less. And in terms of like it's a lot more younger generation. So I think India, Southeast Asia, Korea, Nigeria, like the African countries, seem to really embrace the Web3 space. And for them, I feel like the incentives is a little bit different. But the fact that they have wallets is something to recognize as well. And so that's what I'm seeing. But I think from John's point of view and Charles' point of view about community, even if it's smaller, these are the real people that you want to build relationships. Hey, Josh, can you put yourself on mute? I could hear the typing and background noise. Thank you. And I feel like community, I feel like we just need to define what community is compared to the audience. Community is someone who has a sense of ownership, but also feel like they have to advocate, but also have more of an active interest. And I wouldn't call them shareholders, but they act like shareholders because they're everyone's incentives in Web3 is aligned about seeing it become successful. So having those true fans, I should call them true fans, is what we all care about in Web3. So look for those true fans and create that space where the true fans amplified. And I think Charles is right in terms that in the next decade, brands are moving towards a community-driven true fans kind of vibe because it costs less to use them. And ads at the moment is platforms like Meta and other platforms. When it comes to ads, it's becoming more expensive. Whereas a community-driven brand, the cost of organic marketing is 10 times, and sometimes even 1,000 times if you get the right true fans. So 3 quick advice on how to enter into the space. 1, be curious. 2, I recommend that you follow people in the audience, but also on the stage, because these are the true innovators as well. 3, go do homework, go down the rabbit hole, find your own research, challenge people about it, ask questions about it. And I really emphasize that you need to do your own homework because there's so much space out there, but having fun by doing it is definitely worth the time, especially if you're a true innovator and builder, because we need more interesting people in the space.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one other thing is and it's something I didn't really even know about until I got into Web3, but hiring a good product manager, you don't see that many in the space. And when Charles and I were at our previous company, the company didn't even really start moving the ball forward until they hired a rock star product manager, not a project manager, product manager, way different. But they really understand customer empathy, really thinking about the customer. I mean, it's just amazing. We've been in this space 2 years, and how few companies are actually even talking to the customer. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're trying to achieve mass adoption, and we're not even talking to the customer. So product managers, I'm telling you right now, that is your best investment. We had some meetings in Dubai a few weeks ago, and it was one of the first times we've ever had a meeting with a client where they had the product manager in the meeting. But I'm telling you, it's super, super important. So.
Yeah.
I think String said something I just want to highlight real quick. I'll make it 15 seconds. But when she was mentioning the countries that were of interest, I think that's something that I always like to point out to people when there's really heavy detractors of crypto and Web3. Take note of the countries that they typically live in. And you'll notice that, they're historically countries that have had somewhat of a stable financial environment. And I think that's, very short-sighted thinking that when people live in a country where the ATM works perfectly fine, they automatically think crypto is a scam. But you go to these countries that have, historical inequities in finance, even when battling against the government, crypto and Web3 and that type of ownership economy that they're able to grasp onto, it means so much to them in their space that they have that type of freedom. So whenever you start seeing people really talk down about crypto, really talk down about Web3 and sharing ownership, just take note of the countries that they're from, and it's just very interesting the patterns that you start to see.
So
That's a
And
really
I
good
just want to
perspective.
I just want to tack
go.
onto something John just said about product managers. I think product managers are so important. Over at Infinite World, we have such an incredible kind of product team, and some of the amazing kind of products that they've built, kind of has been so instrumental into a lot of things. And so when we were looking at the market, when it came to kind of white label marketplaces and, different tools and the thing, a lot of the times when people are building projects or products, the product, they're all siloed. Everybody's siloed, living in their different departments, and there's so much information that is missed by the teams just not being in sync. And so I just wanted to tack that product managers are instrumental to really understanding kind of what's going on the community side, what's going on kind of at the front facing side, because you really are going to be able to create something a lot better that is aligned with strategy, product, community.
Yeah, there's so many questions like we have left on this list to ask everyone. I can't believe we're like 10 minutes left until the session. I know there's people raising their hands that want to ask questions, so I really just want to give it to the audience that want to come up and ask the stage a question, if you guys don't mind. So I'm just going to bring everybody up. Not everyone, but like I'll try and get through everyone in these last 10 minutes. So I guess Lisa was first. I'm just going to allow you to speak, Lisa, if you want to take the stage and ask your question.
Hey, yeah, it's a pleasure to meet everyone. I'm heavily in the NFT space, but I'm usually on Clubhouse, and it's been a little difficult for me because I represent in a very official capacity with the whole astronaut candidacy and working with the Space Force and NASA on everything new with cloud platforms and everything with digital artifacts. And then representing and supporting a community where like the scalability of information and allowing the decentralized community a chance to win without marketing a lot of the innovation to big tech companies that can basically monopolize on a lot of the research and innovation incubators that I'm a part of. That whole due diligence and respecting the community is a really, really big thing. And I also have an innovative platform myself. So I found my ways like of balance between a three-way split. And the product management is very important because now you're talking about at an enterprise architecture level, and a lot of these base companies, they have to have the integrated platform. It's not just about integrating TradFi, CFI, or DeFi onto the platform and marketplaces. It's really about, having a dual ecosystem that could be based off of a cloud to do the transactions. But then you see like
Sorry,
companies
Lisa,
like
to cut you. Did you have a question for the stage, or did you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I guess I could. I already introduced myself, so I guess I'll ask a question.
Yes, please. There's a couple of people waiting. Apologies. Thanks.
No, that's okay. So my question is, outside of a product manager in this space, what is another very important role that you see that provides a lot of value in representation in conferences?
If you're a shit poster and a memer, people would love that, especially in the space. And another one is like how to run communities, because like a lot of people don't realize how integral, and we use the word community. So if you know how to do community management or community growth, those are like hyper valuable skill sets as well.
I second that.
Awesome. All right, thank you, and my apologies for taking too long. You guys, I'll be an audience.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate that.
So are we just asking questions mostly, Belinda, for the people who go up on stage?
Yeah, I just want to leave people, because there's a few people that are asking questions and raising their hands, and this is the first time that I'm doing LinkedIn audio, so I don't know how to manage this, but I've got it. Brett, did you want to jump in and ask a question?
Yes. Hi. I'm actually one of the top NFT YouTubers, and I've been dabbling in working with some of the major brands these days. And I see a lot of them trying to fit the mold of the existing Web3 ecosystem. So I wanted to ask John and Charles, what do you guys think about like permissionless brand collaborations and even like redeemable NFTs, where you're kind of just using NFTs as a new vehicle to deliver your current product or service?
That's all Charles. Run it, Charles.
Oh my God, it's not all me. No, I mean, I think, I think it's a great way. Anytime you can utilize any type of innovation like that, you're going to find, a different audience. I think what we've found is, through doing this, actually, I won't say that brand's name. A particular adult beverage brand kind of came into this space thinking that they would create NFTs based on the idea that we're going to bring our customers into the Web3 space. That 100% did not happen at all. What happened instead was they opened up an entirely new audience segment of people that were already into NFTs and already into Web3 that allowed them to introduce their brand to those people. So I think that's where there's some misconception, is that a lot of brands dive into this thinking like, I'm going to offer my same product to my same customers just in a different medium. And what happens, because it is still a little bit clunky to onboard people, what typically ends up happening is they just end up finding an entirely new market segment to show their product to. At least that's what I've seen, in my experience.
Can I just emphasize what Charles says there? Like Hello Kitty did a brand as well, and they try to sell the Hello Kitty brand, but it did not go well. But what it is that you're better off targeting existing wallets in the Web3 space, because they have a little bit more of the alignment is much better. But trying to onboard over to Web3 is not worth the time, especially when you have to do a successful launch. So you're better off targeting Web3 wallets as well. But I have to say, Reddit did a good job. Go ahead, Brett. Do you want to say?
No, you just took the words out of my mouth.
No, I feel like you wanted to say something.
Most brands are making native marketplaces, rebranding the term NFT, selling a digital access pass, all via fiat to onboard existing audiences where they have no idea it's an NFT or on a blockchain. And Reddit did this in 3 months. They onboarded more people in the Web3 than all of OpenSea for this whole last 2 years. So it's really interesting to see. But I was just curious. I appreciate you guys' time.
I mean, we do see a lot of people doing that, and a lot of them have custodial wallets where they're not actually on chain and they're not actually. It depends on how purist you want to be about the Web3 terminology. Like, the collecting of digital assets has been around for decades, but whether they actually get them to go on chain or purchased without fiat is a totally different kind of ball game. But Reddit did a great job, a lot better than most other brands, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Brett, for your question. I really appreciate that. There's a few guys that are in the speaking, waiting to ask questions. I know I'm really mindful of time. Did you guys want to answer a few more questions, or did you just want to go around and kind of leave something with the audience? I'll leave it.
We got,
you guys.
we got 7 more minutes, right?
Yeah, we can do one more question.
All right, cool. All right, I've got Cameron next. Cameron, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Great. So my question is, I invested into a company, a fintech company, to raise capital for crowdfunding in the Web3 space. And they keep telling me that, we're almost there. If this happens and that happens, we're going to make it. And, the story goes on. I'm just wondering at what point will be the catalyst moment that I can actually know that my investment was a wise decision and I didn't just, throw away money. So that's my question.
So I would say that's probably the most common problem in Web3, right? Is that, we saw this fairy tale of dreams that were promised by so many projects and nobody just followed through. And kind of the signal really comes down to, one, how well are they communicating with their audience? But 2, it's really what have they delivered on? Because you'll start to see a pattern that when somebody misses one deadline or one deliverable, they tend to miss if they miss 2, you got to be really concerned. If they miss 3, you're kind of just, you just plan your escape at that point, because it's happening too frequently, too often.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was crazy. I mean, there was just all these former DJs and skateboarders all of a sudden we became overnight tech entrepreneurs, and everybody was pushing them. And we all have we have tons and tons of stories of people that we know just completely got rugged. I mean, it's just, and it was crazy. I mean, I have my MBA from a top school, and like I had never heard of the words like roadmap and like utility and community, and all of a sudden these were like packaged into a product that people were buying. I was just like, it's complete insanity. Like these roadmaps. I mean, the fact that people were able to like just create products, and then it's like, oh, it's like here's this product with this roadmap of a bunch of stuff I'm going to promise you, but how do you have no like recourse to actually cash in on that? I mean, it's just like it just never made sense to me logically. That's why I didn't go on a cartoon buying binge like a lot of people. It just never was logical, and I think that's why most people are scared and never got into space. It's pure logic. It doesn't hold true. I mean, the term degen like comes from degenerate gambler. I mean, that is not a sexy word. So like, I don't know. It's just like,
but I have to say,
I guess I'll tell you, yeah. Don't ask me how I really feel, but that's how I really feel. So.
Well, John, if you don't mind me, I mean, I'd love some advice on the side if anyone's willing to give it. You know, this is my second project I put capital into in the space. I'm kind of just hoping for the best. So I don't know if you guys have any advice outside of it. I only have 4 minutes left, and I'm in the airport terminal, so
but you know what?
Go on stream.
I have to say that even crowdfunding, right, like and angel investments, you're making a bet that if the project's going to be successful or not. But, you know, the anxiety increases when you see them not delivering. So if they do well, great. But if you're like hyper invested into it, that's already like keeping you up at night, then you have to think about if it's worth your time, just like looking at that company or not.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
My takeaway would be that people should really kind of go on Twitter and try and find some, as many thought leaders as possible to see who are doing, great stuff. So, I have a big admiration for kind of the researchers in the space. And I got introduced at Infinite World to a guy named Evan Raymer, who did an incredible job on providing us with all of our research when it came to any of the potential prospective clients that we were talking to. So I carried on going down those rabbit holes of finding researchers. And there was another guy called NFTstatistics.eth on Twitter. And he is one of the researchers for Proof Collective. And when you go and you listen to kind of how they're viewing the market, analyzing projects, and then you're actually sitting in, these Discord groups and just watching how people are talking, you're going to get a real good understanding of the lay of the land, because these people are really just analyzing markets and data over and over again. And it's really going to help you on your knowledge base and just your decision making as well.
I love Twitter. I have to say it's going to be an even more interesting space. And I think, especially when it comes to Web3, it's like a stock market you're on the floor listening to all the data, and everyone's like trying to like do their best in terms of like, hey, this is what's happening. But there's also a lot of like shits and giggles in the space as well. So if anything, I do highly recommend and back what Josh says. Jump onto Twitter, especially if you want the first informational alphas that's happening, or go into like deeper, join Discord, join private Telegram chats, and be where the alpha conversations are.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. There's so many questions. I think there's a couple more that has been waiting there. I feel really terrible. I feel bad. I'm so sorry that I couldn't go through all the questions. And if you want to reach out directly to people and ask the questions direct, feel free to do that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you know what, Belinda, it only means one thing. It means only one thing. We need to do this again. That's it. That's all I need.
100 times. Yeah, we definitely do. We definitely need to do this again. I just want to go around the room. Does anybody want to leave anything on the stage to the audience before we jump off?
Shameless plug, Discord assist.io for community management, but also to stress the importance of community and the fact that they are the lifeblood of any and all projects. And by you building a strong enough relationship with them, as String was saying earlier, they're kind of like your investors. And so if you really listen to them and allow them to have a voice, they will help you build a strong backbone to what it is that you're doing with your Web3 strategy.
Awesome. Charles, did you want to leave something with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I just think one of the things I think about moving into the future, and how Web3 really has the ethos of participation from everybody, is something that Naval Ravikant writes about a lot, and it's the multipliers of business. And we originally started off with the first multiplier being labor, and unfortunately, a lot of that slave labor. But that's how society moved forward, was through organized labor. And then we had organized banking, specifically credit, which really moved us into a more aggressive environment of building. And then next multiplier was code. So you put in a lot of effort into code one time, and then therefore it can really accelerate everything you're doing. And I think the fourth one coming up, which is just my own prediction, is going to be that of audience and that of participation. So if you're able to build an entire group of raving fans that are willing to speak about your brand, be involved in your brand, give you feedback, and you actually be willing to take that honest feedback. We've seen people through crowdfunding raise $5 million in 15 minutes. I mean, we just saw Mr. Beast, who has a community, get over $1 billion valuation, all based on a community he's built around all of his media empire. And audience and community, if you do it right, is the next big multiplier of business over the next few decades.
That's good stuff, Charles. I love it. My advice is just trust your gut. Your gut is always right. And honestly, in this space, if you find good people, just keep them super close, because that honestly, more than the technology right now, is probably your most valuable asset.
I love that. String.
Follow the rabbit hole, because if you do, you could be stuck inside this space forever. And I'm just going to say that you can tell that John, Charles, and Josh, Prashant, and Belinda all had that initiation. So I hope you become like Alice and just follow that rabbit hole, because it's a wild ride right now.
I sat in a Discord alpha group for about 5 weeks straight, where I just stared at the screen, going down the rabbit hole. And if you do that, you will find magical things.
Prashant, did you want to leave something with the audience?
I just want to emphasize one more thing apart from product management and everything, is the importance of the right technical team, because more than often we saw a lot of hacks that happen in Web3 and in blockchain space, and people underestimate that how important the technical team is and the strategy is. So your strategy, whatever it may be from the business, marketing, community perspective, make sure that this is, at the end of the day, is a technical product. So you have the right technology foundation, otherwise you will blow up big as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Tech is definitely the backbone. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone jumping into this first LinkedIn live audio. It's been really, really exciting. And thank you so much for everybody on stage, John, String, Charles, and Josh, and Prashant. Thank you so much for your time. And if anybody in the audience didn't get to ask a question or was too shy to ask a question, please feel free. Apologies in advance to everyone on stage. DM the guys on stage to ask them that question. But thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely to have you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.